Today I'm going to be talking about the Traitors US Season 3, Episodes 6 and 7, and these were a doozy, so let's just get right into it. 6 kind of blends into 7 for me, so this is just going to be one long State of the Union for the Traitors. Carolyn confronts Danielle in the turret about Danielle literally trying to expose her as a traitor out of nowhere and get her out of the game. Danielle literally goes, "I'm not trying to banish you." Yes, you were. Yes, you were trying to banish her. Danielle is pissing me off so much. I think she is so annoying. I think her sole ambition is to win this game by herself. And I think especially ever since Bob the Drag Queen got voted out, she is just not interested in working with anyone. And she is being so hard-headed. Carolyn said, "There's no one I want to murder other than you two right now," which raised a big red flag for me. I was like, Boston Rob is definitely not going to trust you after that. But they kind of move on. They don't really mention that. And then Danielle is still really trying to make it right with her. I think Danielle really thought that she was like doing something when she brought Carolyn's name up at the table. And then when it didn't work, Danielle was like, "Oh, like now I gotta do something about it. I have to make this right because now she's coming for me." Boston Rob wants to murder Wes, but Danielle and Carolyn say it's too dangerous because they're immediately gonna suspect him. I totally agree. I think Boston Rob's strategy this whole time has been hiding in plain sight. Like, let me do the most obvious things, and then when they pin it on me, I'll just be like, well, no, why would I do that? That's so obvious. And then he uses that to blame it on someone else. That can only get you so far. You can only get away with that so many times before people start to realize, like, well, everybody who Boston Rob points to has been a faithful, so obviously it has to be him. The pen broke when Carolyn was writing down the name of the faithful that they were gonna murder, and I wonder if that was why she was wearing black leather gloves to breakfast the next day. Did anybody else catch that? Because she had ink all over her hands, and ink is so hard to wash off. You definitely can't do that in like one hand washing session. I think that's why she was wearing the gloves. Then Sierra in this episode really impressed me. I didn't write down if she said this at breakfast or after the challenge, but she immediately proposes that Boston Rob voted Bob the Drag Queen out to establish dominance, which he did. And then she also brings up right after that the theory that Danielle might be a traitor. But then of course, honestly, I think one of the frustrating things about this season is there have been like star faithfuls and then the faithfuls that are kind of in the background. And that happens every season, but I think the faithfuls in the background are like anything they bring up just immediately gets dismissed. It's like when Gabby told Robin that she heard Danielle in the trophy room and Robin immediately goes like, "Oh no, Danielle's not a traitor." And Gabby goes, "Okay." And then it never gets brought up again. Then Brittany at breakfast says that if Ivar gets voted out, it would just be one less person to make tea. And she describes him as like a piece of furniture that's being moved around the room. Really bold talk coming from somebody who's had like maybe 8 minutes of screen time in the last 5 episodes. I feel like I consistently forget that she's there. And now this is when we're starting to plant the seeds for, spoiler alert, Boston Rob's eventual elimination in the next episode. Derek says that Boston Rob is way too smart to still be in this game and that if he was a traitor, he would have killed him, which is like, yeah, that totally makes sense. We're like about halfway through this game and Boston Rob is still there just pointing fingers and getting people voted out. So the traitors ended up murdering Bob H, which I thought was a weird move because Bob H had just questioned Boston Rob. Again, it's like, how many times do you think you can get away with doing the obvious thing? And this is when Derek and Wes start teaming up to get Boston Rob out. I didn't write down anything about the challenge. Honestly, I know a lot of people skip the challenges. I like watching them. I think they produce a lot of fun moments, but in terms of like actual effect on the gameplay, I feel like not every challenge has a real effect. I think the most significant challenge this season has been the one where Danielle has refused to put her name to get a shield in that like trivia challenge, and instead she put Derek's name and Dolores's name. That was the biggest one where I was like, oh, I think this is gonna have an effect on the rest of the game. But then nobody has brought it up since then. And Danielle is not having Carolyn's back at all, and she keeps spreading rumors about her. It's so frustrating. It's just making me wonder, like, is something being edited out? Why is Danielle doing this? Carolyn is so ready to work with her. And it honestly makes me feel so bad for Carolyn. I feel like she's not having fun. I feel like every time she shows up in the confessional or every time she's in the turret, she really seems like miserable and so frustrated. And she's just getting like bullied by Danielle and just stomped on by Rob. It's like really sad to watch. But I do think that Carolyn is gonna end up being the last person standing. I really do, because if you watch the Traitors exit interviews or just all the people who have been voted out, their exit interviews, when they find out that Carolyn is a traitor, all of them have been like, wait, what, Carolyn? Like, nobody had any idea.
She almost seems clueless. She's doing a damn good job. No one ever has said her name. She's gonna win this game.
Carolyn. Fucking Carolyn. Are you all kidding me? Carolyn's like an evil genius. I mean, I wrote her off.
Carolyn is a traitor? I actually said there's no way she's a traitor because she would just say, I'm a traitor.
Tom, God bless his spirit, throws Dolores's name out at the table, and he says that he doesn't think that she's been trying hard enough to find traitors, and that's why he thinks that she's a traitor. Dolores in the confessional says that she thinks Tom didn't get a lot of attention in his younger years. Yeah. Carolyn, thank God, starts fighting back and starts recruiting all of her allies to go against Danielle. It's like, yeah, she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to get another traitor eliminated, but at this point she has to. It's like her against everybody else at this point. At the round table, Dolores tries to get Sandoval to explain why he thinks she's a traitor, and Tom says, like I said, he doesn't think that she's been trying hard enough, and Dolores says, like, well, maybe I just haven't been talking to you. I'm gonna need an edit of the Traitors that is just footage of Sandoval, because the way that he has gotten all of the women in this house to hate him over the course of 8 days, because this show is filmed in real time. I'm pretty sure every episode is a day. So the fact that we're only on like episode 6 and all of the women in this house, most of whom have never met Sandoval, already cannot wait for him to leave is like, that's really saying something. That is so funny. I need the Sandoval edit. Derek interrupts Tom and says, like, we don't have enough time for this. We need to move on. He brings up his case against Boston Rob, and Boston Rob is just so good at keeping his cool. Before the Traitors, I had actually never heard of him. I've never seen Survivor, and I don't really watch The Amazing Race. Like, I've just never seen the shows that he's been on. But I feel like after this, I want to go back and watch his seasons, because everybody says that he's always just been this like smooth talking mastermind, and I'm so curious to see it. And everybody keeps saying like, oh, he has a psychology degree. That's why he's like that. He has a psychology degree. I have friends who have psychology degrees. None of them are that cool and convincing and manipulative. Also, this is something that's come up in like a few episodes this season. Boston Rob keeps saying that Ivar is a proven faithful. Why is everybody so sure of that? Like, is something being edited out, or is it literally like what Brittany is saying? Like, Ivar is just so inconsequential, he doesn't even know what show he's on. Boston Rob's argument is that the Traitors are putting a target on his back by eliminating all of the people that would make it obvious that it's him, because if the faithful banish him, then they won't have to murder him. He brings up all of the names he's heard, including Carolyn and Danielle, and says that all of those names have come from Wes. And Wes, we have not seen too much of him, to be honest, and again, I don't know much about him from other shows. Apparently he's like a real villain. Like, apparently he's just a dick, and that's kind of his persona on TV. He reminds everybody that Bob the Drag Queen said that one of the cage guys, him, Derek, or Bob the Drag Queen, must be a traitor, and then Boston Rob immediately got everybody to vote him out. Pretty obvious evidence. And his arguments are good. I feel like he's really good at defending himself, but he's just a dick. And Chriselle and Gabby accuse him of being aggressive, and Wes agrees with that, and he says that's why he wins, and a bad traitor would run around being aggressive. True. But then he makes his fatal error and he goes like, oh, to the people who are accusing me of being a traitor. I have my eye on you. Why would you say that? Like, I understand you're frustrated and I understand your whole thing is that you're aggressive and you're an asshole, but now you're openly threatening the faithfuls. You're pretty much sealing the deal. I mean, I feel like at this point he probably knows that he's gonna get voted out anyway and he's trying to go out with a bang, but that is not helping him. Carolyn out of nowhere brings up Danielle, and I don't think anybody was expecting that. She says that Wes is being used as a scapegoat, and she starts like crying, talking about Danielle spreading rumors about her. I mean, that's what I'm talking about with like Danielle is ruining this experience for her. I don't think she wants to play anymore. Like, I think if Carolyn got voted out and outed as a traitor, I don't think she would be that upset. I think she would just be happy that it's all over. And now we're in a full-on civil war with the traitors. Danielle voted for Boston Rob. Carolyn voted for Danielle. I think she was the only person at the table that voted for Danielle. They vote Wes out. I definitely think that they just don't like him. I feel like that's pretty obvious. If you've seen Chrishell's social media posts about Wes, like, she said that she at one point had to tell Wes to like stop talking to her in a really aggressive way, and like Gabby backed her up. I think they just voted him out because they don't like him. And it's interesting, I feel like a lot of stuff must have gotten edited out because me and my boyfriend, when we were watching, we did not get the vibe that Wes was super aggressive like that. I feel like he was kind of barely shown. But Wes obviously says that he's a faithful, and then he flips everybody off and walks out. I'm gonna be honest with you, like, if I was on the traitors and I was a faithful and I got voted out in like such a harsh way where everybody was like so sure that I was a faithful and they weren't listening to me, I think I would also flip them off and curse them out when I was walking out the door. Because I feel like when I'm playing Mafia with my friends, I get so frustrated when people think that I'm a member of the Mafia when I insist that I'm not. Imagine that, like, compounded by 1,000, like that feeling of just like anger and frustration. I think I would also lash out. Honestly, I would not be surprised if I went on a show like The Traitors. I think I would get a villain edit. Brittany, after the round table, brings Derek aside to accuse him of lying for saying that he wasn't actually leading the charge against Boston Rob. And Derek says that it's because he thinks that Brittany is a traitor. He thinks that Brittany and Boston Rob were working together. This was so frustrating. This was really the final nail in the coffin for me hating Danielle. The traitors go to the turret and they just stand there in silence. Eventually, Carolyn calls out Danielle for bringing her name up, and she calls out Danielle for telling Brittany that she brought her name up, even though Carolyn never brought Brittany's name up as a potential traitor. And Danielle goes, well, technically you did to kill her. Be so for real. I literally hate her. I hate watching her. She is so frustrating. She is so like insolent. She is so immature. And it's interesting because Boston Rob is also being manipulative and he's telling lies and he's trying to like win as a traitor, but there's just something different about the way Boston Rob is doing it and the way that Danielle is doing it. Danielle is being so reckless and she is just being so stubborn, refusing to work with people. It is so frustrating. Boston Rob goes, I don't know what to do. And Carolyn goes, we go after Danielle. Awesome. That was so satisfying. My boyfriend and I were cheering when she said that. They basically declared war. Then the next episode is a continuation of the turret. It's a disaster. They cannot agree on who to murder. Boston Rob doesn't even want to say who in his group got a shield because of how much distrust there is in the room. It's a disaster. They cannot win like that. And then Danielle, either in the turret or in the confessional, says that she's feeling so alone in this game. You did this to yourself! You want to be alone. She wants to be alone. Carolyn and Boston Rob have been begging for her to just be cooperative and all work as a team, and she doesn't want to do it. And now she's talking about how she feels alone in this game. It's what you want. I think honestly, because Danielle is trying to be so emotional in these confessionals, and she's trying to be like, I don't know why Carolyn doesn't trust me. Like, I said sorry. I wish she would just trust me. I think she's trying to avoid getting a villain edit, and I think she's trying to make it look like Carolyn is the one who's ruining everything, when really it's her and none of us are falling for it. This is when Brittany says that Ivar is like furniture that gets moved from room to room at this point. Girl, I'm so sorry, so are you. Literally, what have you done? I don't know if maybe she's been doing so much more and just getting edited out, but like, I feel like her and Ivar are kind of on the same plane as like Dolores and like the other people who haven't been doing anything. I'm not sure why she thinks that she's a major player in this game. I feel like her name only became relevant in the last episode when Derek accused her of being a traitor. Ivar says that he's worried about Tom Sandoval at breakfast, and the girls are like, please, dear God, kill him. And then Gabby sitting at one end of the table, Ivar sitting at the other end, and she goes, oh my God, like, I'm worried for Ivar. And Ivar is literally sitting right there. That made me sad. That made me a little sad. I feel like if I was Ivar, I don't know, poor Ivar. I feel like the royals in this game, like, they don't need the money, you know what I mean? Like, Ivar isn't gonna be a game player. He's definitely just there, like, for something to do. I mean, it's not like he has a job. Derek doesn't walk into breakfast. Boston Rob and the other traitors killed him. And it's just too much. Derek was too obvious of a kill. He literally told everyone after the round table last night, I'm gonna get killed tomorrow and it's gonna be Boston Rob. Danielle immediately starts fake crying. If I have to watch that woman fake tears one more time, I hate that she thinks she's eating. You know what I mean? I hate that she thinks she's really doing something. Meanwhile, the girls later are all sitting around together and they're like, she knows he didn't get murdered for real, right? Like, they think it's weird. They think that she's weird and she thinks that she's this like mastermind. It's so frustrating. And it's crazy because Danielle had so much potential too. Like, I remember that in the first episode, she was my favorite. When she was chosen to be a traitor, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so good. And now this is what it's turned to. She's become my least favorite player in this game. I feel like Big Brother is also a show I don't watch. I feel like I need to watch her season of Big Brother because people say that she's like the best player to have never won. And I don't know if I believe that. And then, as I live and breathe, Sandoval starts questioning Boston Rob. He noticed that 3 people that have been a threat to him have gotten murdered. I think Dylan knows that Boston Rob is a traitor and wants to be recruited. I have thought this for a few episodes now. Dylan is right now, I think, the smartest faithful left now that Wes and Derek are gone. I just refuse to believe that he is not even a little suspicious of Boston Rob. A lot of people are comparing him to Peter from last season, and I do think they're similar, but the thing with Peter is that he was a diehard faithful. The traitors tried to recruit him and he said no. He wanted to stay a faithful. Dylan, I just think, wants to win the game. He doesn't care whether he wins as a traitor or a faithful. He just wants to make it to the end. And I think that he knows that Boston Rob is a traitor, and he's hoping that a second traitor gets eliminated so that Boston Rob would then recruit him, which I do think Boston Rob would have eventually done. Sandoval literally walks into the room that Dylan and Boston Rob are walking around in, literally like sipping tea. He has a little teacup in his hand, and they don't notice at all. He literally practically rams into them. They all end up in a room together, the 3 of them, and Dylan tries to tell Tom about the Brittany theory because now Boston Rob's strategy is he's gonna try to blame it on Brittany. And Tom says that the fact that all of the people getting murdered are the ones who are suspicious of Rob is hard evidence against him, and Boston Rob again tries to use the argument that the traitors are trying to frame him, and Tom Sandoval is not having it. Then we had that bug challenge. Oh my God. I was trying to think that whole time if I would have been able to make it through that challenge, holding hands for 8 minutes while the fucking production crew of the traitors is just dumping bugs and centipedes and snakes and maggots all over you. I think I only could have lasted if I closed my eyes, and I literally think I would have needed somebody like Boston Rob to talk me through it. Can I just say, the comments that I've been seeing on the Traitors subreddit about Boston Rob talking Sierra through that challenge, a lot of you are sick. A lot of you need help. A lot of you need to call your fathers and repair your relationship. I am sickened by those comments. And I only agree with some of them. Then at the round table, here me and my boyfriend were watching the show thinking like, ooh, it's gonna be a crazy round table. It's gonna be Boston Rob versus Brittany. It's gonna be so intense. And actually it kind of wasn't. It was kind of an uneventful round table. It felt shorter than usual. Tom Sandoval was just making some really good points. And people were listening to him and he was just being really like strong about it. And Boston Rob just kind of tried to pin it on Brittany, and that was his big thing. Like, oh, Brittany's trying to frame me. Derek thought that you were a traitor, but nobody believes him except Chrishell and Dylan, who both throw away their votes. And this is why I think Dylan wanted to be recruited. He knew that Boston Rob was protecting him. He wanted to be recruited as a traitor. He threw away his vote when those points by Sandoval were really good, and they vote Boston Rob out. I did not think this would happen for a couple more episodes. The fact that this happened like right after they voted out Wes and they killed Derek, it was pretty like crazy. And it's so crazy to think that really the last good players left, like the last really kind of strong minds, are like Dylan and Carolyn and Sandoval. I'm not gonna say Sandoval. I think Sandoval just kind of finally opened his eyes. I'm not gonna come out and say he's a strong player, but there really are not a lot of strong personalities left. That's kind of the most frustrating part of watching the Traitors, is that in the beginning of each season, the faithful always tend to vote out their strongest players, like Jeremy and Tony and maybe Dorinda. I mean, Dorinda got killed by the Traitors, but I just feel like a lot of the strongest minds leave first. And so by the end of the season, you're kind of just left with a lot of like kind of weak sauce. I'm like, who is going to come out as a front runner here? Like, I think either Dylan or Sandoval is going to get murdered next episode. They're having the people who didn't win the bug challenge walk into a chapel, and the Traitors are going to reveal themselves, Carolyn and Danielle, to the person who they kill. It's Chriselle, Dylan, Tom, and I don't even remember the other two, but I think they're gonna kill either Tom or Dylan. Because in the preview, one of them, Carolyn or Danielle, says, sorry, you were just too faithful. And I think the most faithful right now are Tom and Dylan. Chriselle, God knows, is not a threat. She's thrown away every single vote, no matter how obvious the arguments are. But we'll see who makes it out as a front runner for the faithfuls. I have no idea. I mean, Dolores, God knows how she's still there. I think the problem is, like, that's how you make it to the end, is you fly under the radar, you kind of stay quiet, but not too quiet, but you also don't want to be too outspoken. But the problem is the entertainment value lies in the people who are the most outspoken. So it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if there's a workaround for that for future seasons. Like, I would have loved to see Tony and Jeremy on the show more. It like sucks that they were voted out first. I feel like they would have provided some really good TV. But that's it for my recap of The Traitors episodes 6 and 7. Stay tuned this Friday. Love is Blind US season 8 premieres. I'm so excited. So I'm gonna have a recap of that in the coming days. And then we're still talking about The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and, of course, The Traitors. So lots to come. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.